All right, this is the answer key for lesson 9 for the first worksheet. So working through number 1 here. Okay, love this. It's already factored. So we're just going to take each factor and set it equal to 0. So I'm going to take x plus 1, set it equal to 0, and x minus 6 and set it equal to 0. So we're going to end up with x equals -1 and x equals +6 as your two solutions here. Number 2, again, loving that the parentheses are already there because that means it's already factored. So I've got n minus 7 equal to 0 and n plus 6 equal to 0. So n equals +7 and n will equal -6 when I solve those. Okay, number 3. All right, so this guy's already set equal to 0. First step we always do when factoring is pull that GCF out. So let's pull out an x. And we have x plus 5 left. All right, so now set each factor equal to 0. So x will equal 0 and x plus 5 will equal 0. Now this is done, so there's your first answer. And the second guy, I'm going to move the 5 over and get x equals -5. Okay, number 4. Again, this guy's already set equal to 0. So we're just pulling a GCF. So in this case, I'm going to pull out a v and get v minus 3 equals 0. Now set each part equal to 0 and solve. So v equals 0 and v minus 3 equals 0. So I add the 3 over and get 3. So your answers are 0 and 3. Okay, again, this one's already set equal to 0. So what I'm looking for now are what are factors of 3 that add up to 4. Well, 1 and 3 are your only options there. So when I write this down, I got n plus 1 and n plus 3 equal to 0, right? We're just breaking down that n squared to n and n. Now set each factor equal to 0 and solve. So n plus 1 equals 0 and n plus 3 equals 0. So we end up with n equals -1 and n equals -3 as your two solutions. Okay, so on this one, it's not set equal to 0, so we're going to need to get it set equal to 0. So I'm going to bring that 4x over, but I'm going to push it into the middle because remember, these have got to be in standard form, okay? So it's going to be x squared plus 4x minus 21 equals 0. So now, again, I'm looking for factors of -21 that would get us a 4. So let's see, 7 and 3 pop in pretty quick. And since I have a +4, I have more positives. I'm going to keep that 7 positive and make that 3 negative. So I've got x squared breaks down to x and x. I've got a +7 and a -3. So now set each factor equal to 0. So x plus 7 equals 0. X minus 3 equals 0. And let's solve. So x equals -7 and x equals +3. Okay, on example 7 here, again, or sorry, problem number 7 here, we're going to go ahead and set equal to 0 by moving that 7 over. Okay, so I'm going to get 2n squared minus 13n minus 7 equals 0. So now I've got 1 times 2, 1 times 7. Okay, now when I run my inside-outsides, 1 times 7 is 7. 2 times 1 is 2. That is not going to get me a 13 in the middle. So I'm going to take that all that off. I'm going to flip a set. So I'm going to make this 2 times 1, and I'm going to check again. 2 times 7 is 14. 1 times 1 is 1. That'll work. And then if I make the 14 negative, that'll get me -13 in the middle. So my front numbers here will be 2 and 1. So I've got a 2n and a 1n. My back numbers are 1 and 7. So I have 1 and 7. Again, this is all equal to 0. Now my signs, I want the 2 times 7, the 14 to be negative there. So I'm going to put a negative here. And then I want the 1 times 1 to be positive. So I'm going to put a positive there. So now I've got 2n plus 1 equal to 0. And then n or 1n minus 7 equal to 0. So when I solve this, I'm going to subtract the 1 off and divide and get -1/2. On this, I'm going to add the 7 over and get n equals 7. So I have -1/2 and +7 are my solutions. Okay, on number 8, again, we're going to set equal to 0 by moving this -4m over to the other side. And when I do that, it's going to become a +4m. So I've got 3m squared plus 4m minus 7 equals 0. So again, make sure that's in standard form. All right, now start your list. So I've got 1 times 3 and 1 times 7. Okay, I'm looking for a 4. So 1 times 7 is 7. 3 times 1 is 3. And then if I make the 3 negative, that'll add up to a positive 4 here in the middle. So it looks pretty good. So I'm going to start with my 1, 3 out front here. So I've got 1m and 3m. On the back side, I have a 1 and a 7. So 1, 7. Now we just talked that we want the 1 times 7 to be positive. So I'm going to put the positive there. And then the 1 times 3, we want that to be negative. So I'm going to put the negative there. All right, so now I've got m minus 1 equals 0. And 3m plus 7 equals 0. So m will equal positive 1. And 3m equals negative 7 over here. Then I'm going to divide by 3 and get negative 7/3. And those are my two solutions. All right, this guy's already set equal to 0, and he's a difference of squares. So keep in mind, can I square root? Can I square root? And do I have a negative in the middle? So I end up with a 5x minus 7 and a 5x plus 7 equals 0, since this is a difference of squares. So now I'm going to take my 5x minus 7 and equal it to 0, and my 5x plus 7 and equal it to 0. I'm going to add the 7 over, and then I'm going to divide and get 7/5. Here I'm going to subtract the 7 over and divide and get negative 7/5. And those are your two solutions. Okay, on number 10, again, it has to be set equal to 0. So I have got 81a squared minus 1 equals 0. So now I'm looking, is this a difference of squares? Can I square root? Do I have subtraction? And can I square root? And if the answer is yes, let's go ahead and break it up as a difference of squares. So I'm going to get 9a plus 1 and 9a minus 1 equal to 0. So now let's set each factor equal to 0 and let's solve it. So 9a plus 1 equals 0 and 9a minus 1 equals 0. So I get 9a equals negative 1, divide, and I get negative 1/9. Here I add the 1 over and get 9a equals positive 1, and the divide and get positive 1/9. Okay. On number 11. All right, so we talked about making a list, but if we looks like it's square rootable, let's go ahead and check those first and see if they work. So I've got 9 times 9 and 7 times 7. So now when I take 7 times 9, I get 63. And then 9 times 7 is 63 again. And so, yep, if I make both of those the negative, then I get the negative 126 I'm looking for. So my factors will be 9d minus 7 and 9d minus 7. Okay, now set each one equals 0 and solve. So 9d minus 7 equals 0. So I'm going to get 9d equals positive 7. And then when I divide, I end up with 7/9. Now, in reality, you have two solutions here. It's just this solution happens to be the exact same thing. So I don't care if you just write it down once or if you give me two of them. Okay, you still have two answers. It just happens to be the same number in this case. Okay, next guy, again, let's set equal to 0. So I've got 121x squared plus 132x. I'm going to bring that 36 over and get plus 36 equals 0. Again, notice how that's in standard form. Okay. So now, again, big numbers. Let's check those factors, those square roots. So I get 11 times 11 and 6 times 6. So 11 times 6 is 66 and 66, and that would give me 132 when I add it up. So that's looking good. So my combo is 11, 11, and 6, 6. So I've got 11x and 11x. They're all positives. And then 6 and 6. And that equals 0. So I get 11x plus 6 equal to 0. So now I subtract off the 6 and divide and get negative 6/11. Okay, and again, you're going to get the exact same answer twice. I don't care if you write it twice or just give me one of them. Okay, so a ball is shot into an air from the edge of a building 50 feet above ground and has an initial velocity of 20 feet per second. The equation 0 equals negative 16t squared plus 20t plus 50 can be used to model the height of the ball after t seconds. How long does it take for the ball to hit the ground? Okay, so when I'm looking at this guy, they've already wrote the equation for us. So our job is just to figure out how to factor it. So first off, I'm looking here as I'm thinking GCF, and remember, I want to keep this this front one positive. So I'm actually going to pull out a negative. In this case, it looks like a 2. So I'm going to try a negative 2 here to start with. So I've got 0 equals, pull out a negative 2, and that'll turn that over to a positive 8t. Remember, we want that first number positive if possible. Then I'm going to take out 2 here and get negative 10t, and then negative 25. Okay, so now I'm going to have to start my list here, and I'm looking for 10. So I've got 1 times 8, 2 times 4, 1 times 25, and 5 times 5. Okay, so if I kind of zoom in here on the bottom, 2 times 5 is 10, 4 times 5 is 20, and then if I make that 20 negative, that will get me that negative 10 in the middle. So yeah, okay, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to have 0 equals, I'm going to have negative 2 up front still, I'm going to have a 2t and a 4t, and then 5 and 5. Now we already know that we want that 20 to be negative, so I'm going to put the negative there in front. Oops, do that again, negative there in front. And then we do know that we want this 10 on the outside to be positive, so I'm going to put a positive right there. So now I am going to set all my parts equal to 0. So 0 equals negative 2, 0 equals 2t minus 5, and 0 equals 4t plus 5. Okay, now this guy's out. 0 equals negative 2 is impossible. Okay, on this one, I'm going to go ahead and add the 5 over, and then divide and get 5 halves. On the second guy here, I'm going to subtract that 5 over and get negative 5 equals 4t. And then I'm going to divide and get negative 5 fourths equal to t. Now, out of these two answers, only one of them makes sense. You cannot have a negative time, so this guy is out. So our answer is this guy right here. However, we don't walk around saying it's going to take 5 halves of a second. We talk about that it's going to be 2.5 or 2.5 seconds. So when you're doing a real world problem, let's go ahead and divide that out and get 2.5 seconds so that we know what we're talking about in the real world. Okay? All right. Last problem here, number 14. We've got Ben diving from a 36-foot platform. They give us an equation that models the dive. How long will it take him to reach the water? Okay, so again, I'm going to pull a GCF, and again, I'm going to keep that negative 16. I'm going to try to turn that over to a positive. Let's see, 2. I'm going to pull a negative 2 out here because that looks like my GCF. So I get 8t squared minus 7t minus 18. All right, so now let's start our list here. So I got 1 times 8, 2 times 4, 1 and 18, 2, 9, and 3, 6. All right, so I'm looking for a 7. Okay, so if I take 1 times 9, I would get 9. 8 times 2 is 16. And if I make that a negative, that would work. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. So I've got 0 equals negative 2. Now my front numbers are 1t and 8t. My back numbers are 2 and 9. The 1 times 9, we know we want that to be positive, so I'm going to put a positive there. And then the 2 times 8 is 16, so I'm going to put my negative there. Okay, so now go through and set each part equal to 0. Again, I'm going to set that negative 2 equals 0, but we just throw that out. Then I've got 0 equals t minus 2, or 1t. And then 0 equals 8t plus 9. So now if I add the 2 over here, I'm going to get t equals 2. And on that second part, I'm going to subtract the 9 and get negative 9 equals 8t. And then I'm going to divide and get negative 9/8. Now again, can't have a negative time, so this answer does not make any sense, but this one does. So let's make sure we label seconds here. And so it will take him 2 seconds to enter the water. And that concludes this answer key.